contents. I'm not good at GL programming. I'm not good enough at trigonometry to figure that all out. But you can just grab it off of like GLS on Playground or Shader Toy. It has some of its own quirks though, so you kind of have to translate for Touch Designer. But the beautiful thing about this is, we dropped this 2D texture operator, add the code to a stock DAT file, and then you see this, like, I've got my uniform, resolution, and time. We can actually map variables in GL code to Touch Designer, and then we can control it with different things. Super basic. This is some basic 3D stuff. So, particle system. It's being mathematically controlled by. I'm not sure what this one's being controlled by. So.
So I think Philip was saying the live stream's good to go now.
Yeah, cool. You want to give a quick rundown? Sorry. Just a quick synopsis of what you've done and then.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
So kind of like starting? Yeah.
No.
We don't need to start over, but
all right. Yeah. So yeah, Touch Designer is a very flexible platform. It's kind of hard to describe in an elevator pitch because it's like, oh, you can program your lighting rig with this, you can do video synthesis with this, you can do so many different, you can do data visualization pretty easily using those DAT files.
Toyota's using it to manage an autonomous car platform?
Maybe. Yeah. Let's look into. So I think I'll just start making a little 3D thing here. I'm just gonna go ahead and put a sphere in here, and I can kind of show you as we go what's happening. So this is your basic, this is a surface operator, but all the operators kind of show up as these squares. And you got your parameters window over here to the right. I'm just gonna make this a polygon. And if you right click on the output here, you can automatically link to the next one that you're going to use. I'm going to add a noise. It's pretty cool. And I really like that this all renders in real time. It gets to be a pain occasionally. Up the frequency here. Put the amplitude down a little bit. And I'm just kind of working off of an idea here. So to add a facet. And compute the normals, some unique points. Cool. It's kind of sharp figure. Play with some different types of noise. Random. Yeah, that looks good. Let's say we want to rotate this around, so we'll start getting into like how you're controlling things. Because so far I'm just kind of working through a graphics pipeline. I'm going to add a transform, and you hit tab to open this OP, create dialog, stop create. Then you can tab through the different types. But I'm just going to add this in line here, and I'll just rotate it. And what's great is like we can enter a number here, any of these fields and parameters. We can enter a number, or we can connect it to another operator, or we can use a Python expression. And it has some of its own built-in Python definitions, so I'm gonna just say abstime.frame, and that's just basically linked to this timeline. So that's on the y-axis. So you can unfold these and actually see these different types. We're using it as an expression right now. You have an export will be something from another operator, and bind is kind of new. It's kind of a two-way. It's kind of creating a universal variable that you can modify for multiple points. That just came out in the latest update. So I'm actually going to make this rotate on the x-axis instead. Fun. There we go. Cool. But another thing that I could do instead is, as you see these like left and right, you know, where output to input, output to input. So we can add, I'm going to add a channel operator. I'm going to add an LFO, and everybody knows what an LFO is, right? Synth people. It's basically a low frequency oscillator. It's going between -1 and 1 right now. So I'm just going to activate the viewer here, and then you see when I hover over this, I can kind of grab it. So I'll go back to this transform, and I'm just going to grab this and drop it over the y-axis rotate, hit export. And it's probably, yeah, out of 360 degrees, it's not going to show up too much. I'm actually going to pause this one. Yeah, so you can see it moving a tiny bit. So most of what we do with the controls is basically massage the numbers into the range that we want, right? So I'm actually going to right-click and reset parameter for right now. And I'm going to take this LFO, slow it down a little bit. And I'm going to right-click on the output here and connect it to a math. And math kind of acts as an attenuverter, if you're familiar with synths, or familiar with Eurorack anyway. So we've got a from and to range. So what I'm seeing right now is it's going -1 to 1. So I'm going to say from -1 to 1, and I'm fairly certain that it's 360 degrees. It's just full rotation. So we'll just say 0 to 360 and see what it does. And then I'm going to right click here and create a null, so that way that's basically just a forwarder. So I'm going to use the null to connect to it, and that way if we want to add any more features in the middle here, we don't have to reassign it. Go back to my transform, we'll activate this, and export that. Nice. Automatic homing. Oh, that's the translate, that's why. Set that. And let's bring this back over to rotate. There we go. Get something that's swinging back and forth. And I'll add that time back in there. Dot frame, maybe say divided by 4. So we can just do basic mathematical stuff in here as well. Got something that's rotating on a couple axes. Just bring this way down. Cool. Alright. So now we basically have something that's still kind of in a 3D environment. We can't really render an output with this, and since I'm just kind of going on visuals at this point. So what we want to do is we have these compositions for light, camera, and not action, just geometry. So I'm going to drop these. Basically we're creating a rendering path here. So I'm going to go into the geometry, and anything that's in that comp, and you can create your own containers, and it helps you keep it organized as well. You can scroll straight into these and out of them. And as you watch the address bar up here, as I scroll in, and you can get as nested with these as you want. So when you drop it, it initially starts with just this demo torus, but I'm going to add an input. And we've got these flags down here. I'll show you what the rest will do in a minute, but for now I'm going to render and display. I'm going to scroll out, and you see now our composition has this input. So I'm going to pull our facet into there. And I think we got back on the translate, huh? Yeah. Set that. Cool. Alright, and so what we want to do, because we're not actually going to use this as a 2D or as a 3D object right now, is we want to render it down to a 2D object. So I'm going to use a render top. That'll be our 2-dimensional object. And I want to figure out where we want to keep it. think so. Preset. There it is. Nice. Cool. So now we got this thing with obviously a 0 alpha background, and then we can click on the geo. We've got all these different. We've got instancing options here. I'm going to go into camera because each one of these has its own kind of camera viewer. Like if I go into this, I can grab it and move around, and I can shift. Alt. Yeah. So you can move around, but it doesn't affect the actual output. It's just helping you see things through each step of the way. But I'm going to grab the camera, and we're just going to, you want to use a free-button mouse, which is probably better. So I'm going to middle click on this, and then you actually get this kind of tens value thing. And you can go up and down. So I'm going to go up to 1. I'm just going to drag left and right. So you can just kind of adjust the range like that. So I'm going to kind of close it up. We'll translate it down a little bit. A little closer. Yeah, it's got one. And then we'll mess with the light a little bit. Basic stuff if you're familiar with any 3D design type stuff. So let's just make it a little bit blue. But what I actually want to do is add in a material. So I kind of want to work through the types here. So I'm going to add a falling shader. And I'm not a 3D artist. I just like screwing with this part of it. So my stuff is a little less like flashy. To me, the value of this is that you can actually take Touch Designer, build yourself a front panel. Something that, like, say you want to get like a touch screen, we could drop a bunch of faders onto a touch screen and have each fader go out to a different OSC address, so you can be controlling a whole network worth of stuff with just this kind of lightweight thing in front of you. And I'll show you if anybody saw the tour video for Childish Gambino, where they were using Unreal to render the visuals. Basically, they had, I think it was 12 projectors projecting all the way around a 3,000 person dome, and each song had its own Unreal Gaming Engine environment that went with the song, but then everything was being driven by Touch Designer. So the guy who was doing that was just running off a laptop like this and like an Akai Ableton controller, and was basically acting as the video game controller for this entire render farm of Unreal Rig. And then also all the DMX lighting, sending song change cues to the mixer, basically piloting the entire show from a fairly lightweight installation. So, but that's less flashy, that's not as fun. So, I'm gonna drag this fall on here and make the parameter material. We still just kind of have this blank background. So I'm going to go into the palette here, and there's a whole bunch of preset tools. There's everything from projection mapping tools to audio analysis, just all down here. It's kind of an archaic menu. They're supposed to be improving it, but it's been kind of slow going. Chroma keying tools, everything like that. Anyway, I have this composite over black that I'm going to use for right now. That's just something I made, so if I drag it in, now I have something with a black background. And since it's actually a composition itself, I can't actually make this the background, but I'm going to go ahead and add a null here. So each type has a null, and I can use this display flag, and now our background is this. But that's too simple, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to grab some GL that I stole off the internet. Beautiful. We're going to add a null to this, and now I have access to this beautiful galaxy background that is also just made of code. Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this one. Okay. So once we get into this kind of 2D space, a lot of the stuff that we're going to work with is kind of similar to Photoshop, oddly enough. Or if you've done any After Effects or anything like that. Add this to my null, add.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just a general question for those of us
Yeah.
who are unfamiliar with Touch Designer, like me. Is there a particular tutorial or workshop you recommend for getting into it, or does it have built-in
Yeah, I've got
stuff that's good?
Yeah, I've got some good learning resources. There's a guy named Matthew Reagan who has 2 entire college courses that are entirely online, and then he also just has deep dives on different applications.
What's his name again?
Matthew Reagan.
Can I spell his name?
R-A-G-A-N.
R-E-G.
A-N. Yeah.
R-E-G-A-N.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be.
It's MatthewReagan.com. But so is everybody familiar with compositing? Kind of layering things on things, especially when you use Photoshop. You know, there's like multiply and add and everything like that. So I'm going to add our background and our object here together. And when I click on this composite, you see it's set to multiply right now. I'm going to set it to a top. And you can see the order of the operators. Like you can click here and kind of get a weird S shape and switch them. The easier way to do this is just go here in the parameters window. So we can do that. I think a top works well. There's everything that Photoshop has, and then I think about 10 more. So lots of different options. It's fun to play with. Part of the kind of archaic deprogramming environment thing of this is that like I can't click on this and then hit the down arrow. So I actually just made my own tool for that. Yeah, it's like, oh, it doesn't let you do something that every UI should. So what's the answer? Is you just kind of ended up designing your own. So, and this is the beauty of it. It's like if I go in here, I've got these interface elements that I built. You can switch the order, and I can use this slider. And what the slider's putting out is basically just integers that are being indexed to each of those options. So just like super simple Python. I'm still getting better at Python. I'm still getting better at GL. But it kind of like motivates you to when you can just kind of hack together a script and mostly work in this environment that's fairly intuitive once you get used to it. So the same, I could just and we could just left click and drag and multiply these outputs. And then if I activate this viewer here, we can test different modes. That looks kind of cool. Yeah. But for now, I think Over works fine. What I wanted to do was take our fall material here, and we could create a color map using this GL shader. Boom, we got this thing that kind of reflects the environment around it. I can mess with some colors here. There we go. That looks pretty good. Brighter. Let's let out this LFO a little more. Yeah. Then we got something we can play with. So.
Where'd you get that original object from?
This is just a sphere that I'm rotating with this transform. Just added noise to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then faceted it so it creates these distinct surfaces. And then this, falling material is kind of reacting with the light source. But yeah, so then we can play with the noise amplitude here, crash it right through. We can just get a nice planet out of it. So this is where it gets kind of fun, because it's like, all right, we can make this 3D element, we can turn it into a 2D element, we can do, we've got a cross top, so I can basically crossfade it with another element. So if I want to take video device in, if this VHS tape hasn't already ended, I'll take a webcam. It should be our, oh yeah, it's word perfect time. Cool. Pull that in here, and pull this null in here.
Does WordPerfect even exist anymore?
I have no idea. That's
That's old, dude.
Next month's workshop.
Yeah.
WordPerfect.
Yes. So So, and we can also, it'll automatically do a layout, so we can add, as you saw on my.
Oh, so you can just open a window and have a VCR, your output going in the window?
Yeah, this is I think I got this for like $20.
What
It's
is
a little, it's VidBox NW07. It's like an eBay video input box.
Oh, okay, so you see a video.
Composite and SVID, and maxes out at theoretically 720, but more 480. But for what we're using it for,
What was that thing called again?
it's a VidBox NW07. Because I bought a couple of these cheap ones before. There's like the USB dongle, inputs, and I mainly use it for ripping VHS tapes. So it works out pretty well for that. And I'm just going to go ahead and freeze her right here. Look at those shoulder pads. It's amazing.
Would the intensity shuttle do a similar thing? Allow you to train?
Yeah, but that's higher end.
I'm just saying, because I'm thinking about getting one of those things because it seems like a must-have that.
Yeah,
if I don't have.
I'm thinking about getting one of the Blackmagic or intensity things for higher end.
He used it with
stuff.
Lumen. It was just really useful.
I'm always on the lookout for cheaper versions of that though.
$20.
That's why I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
How much is an intensity shuttle?
oh, it's like 240 or something. So
Yeah, I think the Blackmagic ones are down to like 180. And it's like,
oh, that's good.
things that aren't particularly expensive, except that I have this tendency to like, oh, hey, Elite Motion's only $50. Let me get Elite Motion. Let me get a video capture. This is the problem with having a limitless platform like this: is you keep buying shit. Sorry. So we can do something like this. I can apply the same LFO to this here. I figure probably that original range is fine. Oh yeah. Super. But I think we'll stay here for now. So, we've got some 2D stuff going, or some 3D stuff going, there's some 2D stuff, and we've got, something that's generatively creating a number sequence here. The next thing we could add in is joystick, which happens to work really well with, I think this is the Xbox One remote. I'm not sure, my roommate gave it to me again. That's the one I have. It supposedly works well with the newer PlayStation ones too, but I don't have one of those to mess with, so it works with this thing that I already have. And you see this is a multi-channel input here, it just automatically, okay, so we have our axes, we've got our buttons. These are, I love that the triggers are actually variable. That's great. So there's a couple things we can do to control this. If I activate this viewer, again, you see I can kind of hover over these and I can grab them and drag them to control parameters for other things. But then we kind of get in trouble if we have something with multiple inputs. Like I can modify the LFO on its own thing, but if we're using a joystick like this, we've got to kind of look at the ranges that we have. So there's a couple handy tools for this. So I'm going to add in a trail, and trail is basically an oscilloscope. So you get this kind of nice visual feedback on what's happening. This is really handy when you're like working with a Connect input, because Connect spits out like 100 layers of information, which is great. Because it will just literally, this will just look like dots, like you won't even be able to zoom in enough to see what the individual channels are. What's great about that is like we can do an insert and create a select. So select will let us pick out channels from what we've got here. So this is more useful for Connect, but for right now I'll just say like channel names. You can do wildcard searches. So I'm gonna look and say, okay, these buttons start with B, so I'm just gonna say B asterisk, and now we're just down to our buttons. And that helps a lot. If you're using Connect, I do like star LH for left hand, star, and then that'll give you kind of everything. Or like there's two players, so it's like P1 slash LH, stuff like that. But yeah, let's take something more fun. I'm gonna grab my X and Y. Okay, and the right joystick is rotation. I'm just gonna grab X-axis, Y-axis. And you can just space delimit multiple things. I'm not sure if comma delimitation works. And it does. Cool. Very simple. You can just like space delimit these things, pick multiples, add wildcards. Don't really need this trail anymore. Let's head around. So I'm going to assume that these both work on kind of a similar axis. So I'm going to go -1 to 1, and then left and right, -1 to 1. So I'm going to add a math and a null in advance just to be ready to get this where we want it to go. And let's take noise and the x-axis and just kind of make it the noise amplitude, you know.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I set it to the left, right. I'm like, why is this working sometimes? Because I wasn't hitting all the way to the right. So I feel like that's a little bit much. Move this slowly. Let's say the top we want looks to be, let's say 0.55. So we can grab our math and go, let's see, -1 in the from range, and we'll say -0.55 to 0.55. I get something to play with. All right. And similarly, I can just grab this and add it into GL code. Let's see if our Galaxy has any fun inputs.
Can you soften the curve?
Which curve?
Like the input there, it's just straight in. Can you
Oh
soften
yeah.
that?
So yeah, there's several things. I can do filter, or I can do a lag, which is like a slew limiter. So we can just like kind of, let's see the lag. This is the up lag and this is the down lag. So it's basically smoothing inputs. I can let's see. I'll add a trail to this, and I'll create another select. Cool. I'm gonna add buttons. Cool. So yeah, now you see instead of if I bypass this, I'm gonna bypass right here. So basically got that square input. This is just like using a math, right? Everybody should buy maths. Cool. Let's see, yeah. This, yeah, we get a nice slow curve out of it. And filter is basically like that, but we have some more options. So I'm just gonna add this filter in line. Let's see if we can get it to. Definitely created this in line and kind of messed everything up. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just kind of messing around with it. If you want to see what effect it's having, we can just drop a trail, you know, anywhere we like in here. It's just like having an oscilloscope wherever you want it. Great. Nice. Creating negative noise on the other side. There we go. And I can set this crossfader to grab another axis here. Y-axis. And I think we'll actually want to break that one out. Just make it select for the y-axis. It's kind of the problem with like creating things in line. Kind of mess up sometimes. So I'm just going to create a select separately, and then we'll just add a wire into it here. And let's say y-axis. card. And we'll math this range up to 0 to 1 since that's what the cross uses, and we can actually, let's see, post op. Actually clamp these ranges too. If I can remember where it goes to. That's alright. We can go past the range. Cool. Probably just add a note to this. There we go. There we go.
That's awesome.
So we can use a video game controller for this. We can use OSC. So, have you ever seen Touch OSC on like an iOS device? I think they have it for Android, but I found like all these free apps.
So you can, if you have a Lemur controller, you can just plug it right in.
Yeah, exactly. Lemur.
I have one. I'll bring it. Like
Yeah.
for one of your next talks, we can check. You could look
Yeah.
it up. So I've been wondering what I could use it for because it's kind of obsolete, really.
But the app is still pretty useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can get the like iPad app,
Yeah.
or like you can just download this free OSC controller app. And I'm not up to the Wi-Fi, but controls, and then Touch OSC and Lemur are the same. You can like design your own interfaces and bring a tablet, or if you have like a Surface or whatever. I wouldn't recommend doing this work on something like a Surface, but to do the front end, totally good. And beyond that, even just beyond the controller, I also have ZigSim. I think there's something similar for iOS as for Android, but basically gives you direct OSC access to all of the accelerometers and magnetometer, every sensor on your device. So I could just like send that over the Wi-Fi and control these things by waving my phone around. Wiimote too, if you use Glove Pi, There's a little bit of
So
middleware.
there's
for
lots of
everything.
external programs and apps to
Yeah,
improve
exactly.
the functionality of
Yeah,
the overall program,
There's something
right?
to translate the Wiimote to OSC, but also you have to have the right Bluetooth chipset because it's old and all those things are picky. But if you have like a modern controller or a Kinect, I went looking for my Leap Motion last night and I couldn't find it, but that's a good one. It's like Kinect for your hands.
What is
That's
it?
a lot of fun. It's called Leap Motion. It's like this big, which is exactly why I couldn't find it. And, but it's like Kinect for your hands. There's supposed to be this thing that you like set on your computer, and it works 75% of the time. It's a little, it's not super precise, but it's fun if you want to kind of theremin your way through this. It works great for that. So, just maybe check things. I'm just really glad. If you haven't learned anything about this, I hope you learned something about WordPerfect 5.1 from this. Really, just wonderful software. I'm not sure which I'm talking about at this point.
So Step Designer just take whatever, sorry, words are escaping me, any sort of input device that are going through your machine and just take that as any source.
Yeah, like anything that has a driver that it recognizes. I can do like the serial module. I can just anything that talks serial. So like I've been building Arduino devices that I can just plug in and directly use, microcontrollers with sensor arrays, or build your own Of course, a lot of the microcontrollers now, you can just like kind of type them in the bootloader to be like, oh, this is a MIDI controller, so it'll show up on a PC as a MIDI device. But still, we can just do direct serial, so I can just pull in sensor data directly from an Arduino or TNC or whatever. Anything else, like it's not, you know, absolutely universal, but Derivative, the team who makes Touch Designer, like their whole thing is, oh, hey, there's a new toy, let's, you know, let's add it in. There's OpenVR, Oculus Rift, there's Vive, so I should actually get on the Wi-Fi and show you this video. It's really awesome how they do that. Direct drivers for touchscreen. So many things. Audio file in, audio device in. Yeah. You can get keystrokes. So yeah, basically most things that you can think of that you can plug into a computer.
Yes.
It gives you some way to interface with. It's really sweet. So I was debating between doing the DJ thing and like just kind of down. So,
How long have you been using Touch Designer, and what got you into it to begin with?
about a year and a half ago. It was actually a while beyond that. I was watching some like Nine Inch Nails tour footage from. If you've seen like. There's a couple different tours where they did it, but Moment Factory out in Montreal did a show, or did a tour setup for them where they were just kind of interacting with the stage as part of it. Like, I could actually, yeah, what's your Wi-Fi password?
Oh, it's all lowercase Modular8 shop with numeral 8. Yep.
Is that the one where he turns the video wall on the drum machine?
Yeah, the video wall being the drum machine, where they basically had an LED wall behind them, and the drummer got up and like basically a 16 by 4 grid popped up on the LED screen, and they used basically a back. They had a Connect on the front of the stage and a Connect on the back of the stage, and basically he broke the boundary to like. Kind of like Wheel of Fortune, Vanna White, the drum pattern in. And like, yeah, that was one of the first moments where I was like, how the hell did they do that? And then like using a spotlight to clear the video, and it had like a roll down, like thin LED screen in the front where you could see them through it. So like really great example. So I saw that and basically was like poking around for a while and figured out that it was Moment Factory who did it. And yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
If there's audio. Basically being able to do things like that. Having TV static on the front screen and like it clears around Trent Reznor when he leans forward. Just all this kind of insanity where they're just doing like multi-layer video and everything. And this is, you can really go into it, but you can build your own interfaces in Touch. And then just kind of use them as standalone apps. So you can see the kind of nightmare of running a DMX lighting rig on top of this when they go to the second page of this. Basically song cues that are sending out signals to all sorts of things. Yeah, DMX lighting is a nightmare. Cool. And then using Connect depth cameras to kind of run the band while they're playing. Kind of adding noise and spotlighting it out. So basically I saw this and I don't know if Bjork was using it, but there was this just period of time where YouTube was full of these like concert videos. It was like, what the hell? How do you do that? And I kind of landed on Touch Designer. So a year and a half ago, I had time to kind of sit down and start getting into it. And now I kind of understand theoretically how you would do all this stuff. As soon as somebody gives me a couple $1 million worth of concert equipment, I will totally test that knowledge.
That's really cool. Would you say it has a steep learning curve, or?
It does. It also kind of depends on where you come from, background-wise. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
if you have,
Like,
if you have
certain
experience
skill-
in video synthesis or whatever.
Right,
it might
yeah.
make
If
more
you
sense.
have an LZX rig or just your rack rig, or you I grew up on Reactor from like Reactor version 1.
Yeah,
they
the
totally
whole
missed-
object-oriented, draw the lines.
Yeah, the
connect
whole,
objects.
Even just
modules.
like when I went to school for recording engineering, like how much they drilled output to input, output to, like think about your output to input and how you're patching things together. So there's some of that, and then I have a little bit of electronics background, a little bit of programming background. Like I'm a little bit good at a lot of things. I'm really good at asking people who are smarter than me. It's a great way to learn. So yeah, I mean, it depends on your background, but it can be a little steep. It kind of reminded me of Reactor initially anyway.
Or Max, maybe.
Yeah, or Max. This kind of like gray, we've got these accent colors, but it's a little threatening at first. This is a piece I did for this totally Comtrue's Vaporwave thing. This was an interactive Connect piece that I did for PNCA's art show, and I don't have a Connect, so I'm just gonna add, not that. I'm just gonna add in my webcam, and we're gonna replace the Connect with that. And it's like really easy to kind of patch through. Like, okay, cool, we're already here. Let's go into both of these things,
Wow.
so I can just Comtrue's cover. So visually, it's like we're bringing in this video device, thresholding, blurring, all these things that you would kind of know from Photoshop if you messed around with it, or GIMP. Just kind of using this. I was initially using this volumetric fog plugin that I found, volumetric light and fog. It was just dropping my frame rate, so I rendered it as a video. You can actually what is it? Oh, movie file out, and you can record video. It's just got a little, record switch, which you can activate all of these. If I drop this down, these names that you see here are actually just their Python references. So I can just write like, on trigger, record equals 1. So,
Everybody, this is Ty Humphrey.
hey, how's it going?
Ty, there's a cooler back there. That's beer or whatever.
Yeah, I'm basically doing a feedback.
We're doing
loop
question
here.
and answer now. Have you ever used Touch as an iron?
Who?
You.
So this is a little more, Rasta.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
No, I
This is-
I use software to make a living, and when I want to make art, I run away from it. More or less. No offense.
Yeah, I started buying like hand drafting tools and just drawing.
Yeah, it's like
Every once in a while, you gotta like.
Yeah, like those guys. It's like
And I
you
can't
don't
draw
want to be using
freehand, so I'm like, I'm
Photoshop
gonna
all
learn
the
how
time.
to draw like a 50s architect, like just straight up. Yeah, and just kind of composited on these scan lines here, and it's totally Comtrue's.
Is there a particular company that makes plugins or things that you found particularly useful for this program? Or?
The third-party environment is just kind of opening up. There is, like, I can add these.
Now, are these similar to like the ISF from like forever?
Hmm?
The shaders, like the Pete Warden shaders and stuff like that?
We're not familiar with those. It does have GL integration, so you can kind of modify WebGL or GLSL for it. They just opened up the C++ operators to non-commercial licenses, so now everybody can develop for them. So, shockingly, there's suddenly like tenfold, plugins out there. There's chopchopchop.org is a free resource for them, and people are just kind of selling them variously at different web stores. It hasn't really condensed yet, but
It didn't look like you could actually sell stuff on Chop 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 yet. Like
Yeah,
the form to
it's-
sign up is there, but
Right.
it doesn't look like there's anything behind it.
yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I signed up and downloaded all the free ones, and I don't think there's anything commercial on there yet. There's another site that's coming up that does have commercial ones, but it only has like 5 so far. But then there's a bunch of GitHub repos that are just like, learn how to compile, deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, So I can do all the visuals right here. What's missing from this is actually also taking the tracking data out of the Connect and selecting, I think it's just using hands for this. And I'm just doing a little math here and there, merging it, and then OSC out, and it was sent to VCV rack running on the same machine, just running a generative patch, and as you move your arms around, I think, yeah, this is actually it. Oh, the sound's not running through the projector, but yeah, basically using an OSC in.
Do you want some audio?
Sure.
We can do that. Let me just take a second. But easy to do.
VCV rack's not great with HDMI output. We'll see if it wants to do it. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it sounds good or anything, but you know, just people being able to like walk up and see that you know, this was projected, and then being able to control the density of nodes and the scale by moving their arms around. Watching people discover that, or just do it for a second and walk away. It's, you know. So, and this was like, I kind of did this midnight the night before the show. So,
Does anybody have any other questions? Do you have other stuff that you want to show, or do you?
I think that's it. I mean, I can open files from stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Show us some stuff you've done, like projects or whatever.
Yeah. There's some stuff that's still being developed that I can't really show you yet, but cool. I think we'll jam on some video stuff. Like a collab. Yeah, we're talking about doing like a collaborative thing.
What kind of hardware does it require?
Oh,
That's like
I got a couple
gaming
questions,
laptop
so
from
you can answer those. And
it's a year. Well, the model's probably been 2 years old. So
There is a Mac version now. It's not like 100%,
Yeah.
100%, but it's mostly works.
yeah, it's theoretically PC and Mac, but if you want to do anything that requires any kind of GPU at all at this point,
Yeah.